Welcome to hashtag 52 Needs, and this week we're talking about structure. My name is Angela Heise. I'm a leadership coach and emotional intelligence trainer, and I have with me, and I'm so honored is Julie Mason, a good friend and my old mentor. Not that she's old, but she's been mentoring me for a long time, who is a straight sales improvement specialist, an accountability coach, and best known as a LinkedIn strategist. Now, when you go to Julie's LinkedIn page, it will say there, most people have a scattergun approach to LinkedIn, trying different tactics that generate very little to no results, leaving them feeling frustrated and thinking that LinkedIn is just a waste of time. Welcome, Julie. This is the perfect introduction, right? Because
Hi, Angela.
you talk about structure in the first sentence of, when you introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to work, I am very structured.
Mm. Yes. Oh, yes. And you're a structured person, but
Yeah,
not from a place of rigidity, but from a place of giving you the flexibility to step out of it occasionally. And
yes,
we've talked about this before, how important that is.
exactly. Absolutely, it is. But when we have structure, work is easier for me.
Mm,
So I'll give you a really good example of this with LinkedIn,
yeah.
where my clients, if I said to them on LinkedIn when they're improving their profile that they need to rewrite their about section, which is all about what they do.
Hmm.
And I said, and if I just said to them, you've got 2,600 characters, off you go and write about yourself, they would just go into overwhelm and writer's block and nothing would get done. So instead, I give them a very defined structure of what to write for every paragraph in that about section. And they can take up to as many characters as they need to achieve that for the 2,600. But now they've got, oh, okay. So in this paragraph, I've got to write about this. In this paragraph, I've got to write about that. And it gives them a very defined structure and it helps them achieve.
Yeah.
So structure is very important.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you're also an accountability coach, and we've talked about that in the other video that I think you can watch that. If you want to know about accountability, Julie explains how that works in that video. But
Yep.
I'd really want to talk about the balance when you work, because we're talking about structure, which
Yes.
is a strategy at work, and the need for discipline on one hand and the need for autonomy on the other.
Mm.
So we need to have the discipline of achieving tasks, and that's also called KPIs.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, one of the core human needs at work is autonomy and competence.
Mm.
So restricting somebody and saying to them, you're going to be doing this by this and this and this. Okay, there are jobs where that's required. You can't just decide that you're going to do things, you know, in a way when you really need to follow a process. But in lots and lots of jobs you can.
Well, a really good example of that is I've got a VA that works for me,
Mhm.
and she does social media content, not just for myself, but at the moment we've put me on hold. So if you're looking at my social media and going, "Wow, there's not much going on," there's a reason for that. So, but essentially, we do content for some of my high-end clients,
Mhm.
and and so we have, you know, let's say 6 clients that she manages content for, and we have a structure for that month that she needs to do that. Now, we usually get her to do 2 clients a week, essentially. And I don't then restrict her, I don't micromanage her because she's in a very creative role. She needs to create the images, source the content, create the text, put it all together so that it flows for that client.
Yeah.
And if I'm constantly, what are you doing? What are you doing? How's it going? That kind of thing throughout the week, I will put pressure on her and restrict her creativity.
Yeah.
Whereas when I leave her be, we have a very defined structure of how we work. I spend no more than about 20 minutes on a call with her on a Monday morning, and we set up what her goal is for the week. And then I just leave her to it. And I give her enough space that if she needs to take a break, then she can take a break and recharge, because forcing somebody to be creative actually stifles creativity.
Yeah,
And so I just trust. There's got to be a level of trust in that process with an employer-employee relationship.
absolutely.
And so there's a level of trust there that she will have that done by the set time, and she does, I'm
Mm,
happy to say. But we do that every week, just check in with how everything's going. And if I find that she is not quite getting her goals achieved, then I definitely step in and say, what's going on with you? How can I best support you? I don't rouse on her because, again, that's not going to serve a
point.
purpose.
Yeah.
I check in and say, how's that going? How can I best support you in this?
Yeah.
And then she'll tell me, oh, I've been really sick, and which has been an issue over recent times, and various different scenarios. So I've said, okay, great. How can I best support you? What do you need me to send you
Mm,
to help you get through this, so that you're not carrying the burden of creativity, particularly if you're
yeah.
unwell? So there's structure in that, and we have a structured relationship. We have structure to the work that she does. There is structure then with my clients in delivering that. They know what to expect, and that it will be delivered on time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it,
Yeah.
it structure is important, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I
But
mean,
it doesn't have to be micromanaged.
no, no. It's look, I was just thinking about that. I like, I mean, I've managed people over the years, and what I do is again, I like setting up frameworks where saying, so these are the intended outcomes, these are
Mm.
intended time frames, how you got, and it's like, I'm not going to say you're going to get from here to here in that row, and we're going to pay, you're going to do it in this order, in this way. This is the goal. This is where we're going to go. This is when you're going to get there. How you're
Yeah.
going to get there, that's up to you. We might have a check-in in every, depending on the how long it is, how long the time frame is, but the flexibility you have to get there, that's yours.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Exactly. All of my clients that I work with as a sales improvement specialist, for example, or accountability coach or a LinkedIn expert, there are processes that I take them through, but they're not so rigid that they can't, have creativity space around it, that they can't, breathe essentially around it,
Yeah,
because having that breath around what you do
exactly.
is really important. But it's, if somebody, I remember somebody sitting down with me years ago and saying, so how do you coach? How do you actually do that? And that's a really good question, because for me, it's just a natural flow,
Yeah.
and it's quite logical. And I know that you would have experienced this when I was coaching you with LinkedIn years ago,
Mhm.
that I have a very logical approach to everything, right?
Yeah.
It's all in sequence, designed to help you get to the outcome. And I've realized that I'm quite logically driven. So even with my sales improvement coaching, for example, everything's kind of logically driven from, you know, this is where you are now, here's where you want to get to. There's a destination
Mm,
and checkpoints that we need to hit before we get there.
yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite interesting that even though for me it's quite intuitive and it flows, somebody asking me that question made me sit back and go, okay, yes, there is a process that I clearly take everybody through.
Yeah.
It starts with, if they've got some real mindset blocks, then we have to work on that, because anything other after
Yeah.
that won't work, because they'll self-sabotage, and then goes through the rest of the process
Yeah.
to help them achieve their goals.
I'd
So
say I do the same thing when I get new coaching clients, and I don't often know what they're coming for because, and as a leadership coach, they can, like LinkedIn, and they can come in, they can go into all different directions, or emotional
particularly
intelligence.
for you with emotional productivity, you don't know which emotions they're going to
None.
bring as the
Yeah.
baggage, right?
Well, and because I can go, because I've got these different, different practices that as
Yeah.
I call them, and I don't know if they're coming because they are not fulfilling their needs, which is what we're talking about,
Mhm.
or whether they don't know how to set boundaries, or whether they don't know how to deal with anger. All of these different things comes up, but
Yeah.
I have a certain, um, structure that goes, I'm going from here to here, from here to here, and I check, and if it goes down here, then I go here and then go there. So and then that's the flexibility, but there is an internal structure. And I sometimes find myself saying to people when they go, why are we doing this? And I go, there's a reason why is this, but there's method to my madness.
Mm.
It may not look at the moment like that, like I'm know where I'm going, but the reason we're doing it is this. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember somebody, I don't know whether I read this or somebody told me this story years ago. But it's a really great one that I think ties in, particularly for you and I. I mean, we're surrounded by our books in our
Yes.
offices, right? We love learning. It's our
Yeah.
passion. It's one of our strengths in our Cliff Finder strengths, for example.
Hmm.
But somebody once told me, and I thought it was a really great way of doing an analogy to this. They said, you can go out and learn. You can read all these books or do all these courses, and it's like you're going to build a house. But except what you're doing is you've got your block of land and you keep just bringing your building materials there. Okay, I'm going to bring my lumber and put it down. That's one course or workshop that you've done. Or I'm going to bring my bricks and put that down. I'll bring my bags of cement and I'll bring my water and have it over there, and I'll bring the Rio for reinforcing the concrete, and but nothing gets put
Clearly done some
together,
building.
right? And yet what you want to do is, if you're learning, for example, structured learning, then you want to implement that learning as quickly as you can. So if you're in this house analogy, then you put down your foundations, then you build your walls, then you put your roof on, and
Yeah.
and so you'll have two people, like our two blocks of land. One will end up with a house, and one will end up with a pile of rubble on a piece of land,
Mm.
that isn't actually serving them
Yeah.
because they're not implementing that learning. So I love that analogy because it really talks about the structure,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Um, I was actually thinking that because of obviously I before we have these conversations, I think about it. And there's one guy who really impressed me very early, many years ago. And I don't know if you've heard of him, Ricardo Semler.
no, I
He
haven't.
wrote the 7 Day Weekend and the Maverick. And
Right.
he took over the company from his father in the early 90s, I think. And the first thing he did, and he was 21, is he fired 60% of the C-suite.
Right. Wow.
And he organized what he called democratic leadership.
Yep.
So there is structure, but the structure is very loose, so that even people who work on conveyor belts and have a mechanical process that they do organize their own shifts. People can go on holidays when they want to. They can negotiate for a sabbatical year if they want to.
Mm.
And it's worked really well for people who like loose structure. People who
Yep.
lead more rigid structure, they don't like it so much. But he has an average turnover of 2%. That's
Wow,
it.
that's low. Yeah, yeah.
And that's he's been doing this for many, many years. And
Mm.
recently Netflix is basically doing exactly the same thing. People
Mm.
get to choose their maternity and paternity leave, when they want to go on vacation and how long for. It's not regulated.
Mm.
So again, we're starting, and now with COVID, working from home, there's a lot of structure that's been shaken up, and that is not no longer working like that, because we work from home. We put on the machine of the load of washing while we
Yeah.
do our work. So things are changing.
Yeah. I think that it's really heartening to hear. I read a book about another company in the UK who does that same sort of thing. Ineos is the name of the company, and the book is The Alchemists, not the famous Alchemist by Paul Coelho,
Yeah.
but The Alchemists. And it's a petroleum company, interestingly enough, and they started, this. They're now the largest privately owned company in the UK,
Hmm.
and one of the top 20 petroleum companies in the world now. But they started, I think, with like $147,000 investment, which for one of the top 20 biggest,
Yeah,
petroleum companies, that's a pretty good way to start.
absolutely.
And they use that same thing. They acquire businesses, they strip out the middle management, and they put in key people that can manage that have autonomy,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And that are structured, and yet they give them the flexibility to achieve the job,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so I think we'll see more and more of that, particularly since we've had the pandemic hit worldwide, and a lot of people are now working from home. And of course, that was the micromanager's worst nightmare, right?
Oh,
That,
yeah.
well, we can't trust them to do their job at home, and yet business is flourished. In fact, I think I read in ABC News or something the other day that Australia's economy has actually bounced back quicker
Mm.
than anywhere else. I have to say, I'm still a little skeptical about that. I'm not sure how that has happened, but again, I'd like to think that it's because, you know, we've got the structure now for people working at home. We're now getting
Yeah.
used to that, and that productivity is actually flowing better
Yeah.
for it. You know, we do have stunning, you know, massive mental health issues
Yeah.
across the board.
I was just about to say that the flip
Yeah,
side to that is that people are now so over responsible that they've taken accountability to a whole new level because
yeah,
they want to be seen as productive and as to contributing. But the stress of doing it away from structure,
yeah,
of being self-accountable all of a sudden in a whole new way is really taking its toll on
yeah.
people.
Yeah, and I think we have to remind ourselves that there's light and shadow to every
Mm.
situation, right?
Yes.
Some people will absolutely thrive, and there'll be other people who will really struggle being on their own in that environment. They miss that social engagement that they get from the work environment,
Yeah.
and that will have a massive impact.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting times that we live in, that's for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, look, I think there's so many things that are changing at the moment that, I mean, just a few years ago, we would have never really considered. Like, I still remember a time when I had a client and I suggested to them because this was about work-life integration. And they had 3 children and they felt that they were constantly struggling to keep work and spending time with the children and spending time with each other and not getting anything done. And we created a calendar. So within Outlook or, you know, Apple, you can do it all of that. Create calendars that have different colors. So
Yeah.
there would be colors for you know, for this task, for that task, but also for time away. Like, I mean, my calendar has yellow for social activity and a pinkish orange for self-care. And I look at
See, my colors for my calendar for those two things, my productivity is yellow, so when I
okay,
need to get tasks done.
that's green
um,
for me.
yeah, and well, green for me is where I'm doing sales generating activities. So
Okay.
green means I'm going to get green money.
Mhm. Right.
And then my self care is in a sky blue color for calm and relaxation, and you
That's
know,
my travel and my time away.
yeah, color. I think
Yeah.
color is really important when we
Yeah.
structure things as well. We I think as a human being that we gravitate to certain colors, and it
Mm.
anchors us into
Yeah.
those processes that we
But
have.
the thing was at that point, you know, sharing calendars was a really new thing. You know, like I
Yeah,
said, you know, have one calendar where you have all of it together. Now there's so much structure, and I have clients all the time who say, I have to block out time now. That means that nobody can book in an appointment because if I don't do that, poof, I've got an appointment in there, and then
my
my
productivity
time,
goes
my
to
productivity
hell.
is gone.
Yeah,
And it's I say to people, please block out time, structure yourself.
yeah,
If you need time to be creative, or even if it's like, and I encourage people to say, book in time for a walk.
yes.
You know, don't have your lunch in front of the computer, go for a walk or do whatever you need to do, but give yourself away some time away, because we are just so productive these days. I mean,
You
I
know,
just talked to a friend who starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, sitting, she works from home,
yeah.
sitting at her desk, and she finishes at 7:30 at night.
Oh, yeah, that's too long, way too long. Death
Yeah.
by chair.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, during, again, coming back to our recent times of pandemic, some of the videos that have trended the highest on YouTube are actually the study with me videos. And one of the ones that I've used during that time is the Pomodoro method,
Mm-hmm.
which is where you work for 25 minutes and then you
Yeah.
have a 5-minute break and you
Yes.
actually get up and do something else and switch your neuro pathways into something
Yeah.
else and have a rest. And they have been some of the highest trending videos
Mm.
of all, where there's literally on your screen just somebody studying, you're watching them, but it gives you that sense of I'm doing it with somebody,
Yeah.
right? But it gives them that structure. Okay, we're going to do 20 minutes of study, then we're going to have a 5-minute break, then we're going to come back for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And those YouTube videos, some of them go for 8 hours. So your whole day can be structured with that YouTube video there ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a countdown timer on some of them, so
Okay.
so it's
Yes.
structured.
Yeah.
And others are a little bit, that might just be a 30-minute one, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That sounds great. And again, if you can find what works for you, because I've tried the Pomodoro method and it doesn't work for me, because when I'm really in flow, then and I have to stop when I'm writing, for
Yeah.
example, then getting
Yeah.
back into it again will take me. And that's the study they have
20
also shown,
minutes.
is when you're in
Yeah.
flow and somebody interrupts you, it takes you 20 minutes to get back into it
That's
again.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
So
for some people it works really well, depending on
yeah,
the tasks. For if
exactly.
I can't do it if I'm trying to do copywriting, for example, because that copywriting, you need to get into the
Yeah,
headset mindset,
exactly.
and then you need to flow. And if you that one, um, interruption
Yeah.
will throw you
Yes,
completely. So yeah,
exactly.
I have structures that people don't interrupt me in my house because I work from home like you
Yeah.
do. But I have people and dogs and everything
Yeah.
here. So I need to, put a notice on the door, do not interrupt,
Yeah.
leave me be. I need to focus on this. So you
Yeah.
can't just come in and go, hi, honey, I love you.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I appreciate that.
yeah,
Go away.
a lot of my clients work in large offices, like
Yeah,
open floor offices. And I say to them, have a signal that tells people that you're really working and that cannot be interrupted, or that you choose not to be interrupted at this point.
boundaries are structures that we
Yeah,
have to
totally.
we have
Have,
to and I think Dr. Phil said years ago, we actually teach people how to treat us. So
absolutely.
you can teach people to treat you like a doormat, or you can teach people to
Yep.
respect your time.
Yep.
And again, that's that structure that comes
Yeah.
back into it.
So,
It's very
so
important to do that too.
absolutely. So what I recommend to them is put something on your desk that tells people that you're not available, and could be anything. I don't know. I mean, I'm just grabbing something that I've got on my desk because I always have my tiara, you know, because it's, oh, everything's terrible. And you can just put that. I mean, if you want to put it on your head, put it on your head. A lot of people use headphones, but
Yeah.
that's often considered an excuse now, and people don't mind them. They just still tap people on the shoulder. But something, I don't know, put something on your, on your desk that says to, and explain to people, it doesn't mean that you're now unavailable for an eternity. Ask people to, put a timer on it or whatever it might be, but something that tells people you're just needing this time right now.
Mm,
That's the structure that when people say, "Oh, but I can't do that, I need
mm,
to be available," and I say, well, then have an agreement that if lives have to be saved, buildings are burning, babies have to be birthed, and women are in labor, anything like that, that qualifies as a reason for interruption.
mm,
But do you want to have lunch with me, or I have to meet this client tomorrow and I don't really know how to talk to them?
mm,
Probably doesn't.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So again, I mean, structure means something different to everybody, and I hope that what we have just talked about, Julie and I, will entice everybody to have a look at how much structure they want in their life. How much do you need at work? Where do you want to be managed? Where do you not want to be managed? Where do you absolutely hate to be micromanaged? Where can you put some more structure into your place by having, again, watch the other video as with accountability buddy, have some batch days where you do tasks that
Mm,
you just put on one day. Like I have Monday mornings are my admin days, because I
mm.
set myself up for the week. But for some other people, that might be setting up appointments or whatever it might be, but create something that gives you structure, but at the same
And
time the
and in
autonomy.
that, think about the boundaries that you need to set as
Exactly.
well,
Yes.
because they're really important. I've had that conversation with clients as well, where we've put structure in their day, but they didn't have boundaries, and their family just overrode everything.
Yeah.
And so I actually had her laminate a sign that went on her office door in the house that said, "I am in a meeting. Please do not interrupt." And in or because her family was so unstructured, and I said to her that before she would put that sign on her door, just go and personally check in with all of your
Yeah.
family and say, "I just want to check in with you. I'm going to go and be in a meeting for the next half an hour. So I want to know if you need anything now,
Hmm.
or anything that I can help you with. I'm happy to do that. But from here to here, I'm going to be unavailable."
Yeah.
Okay. And that made a massive
Yeah.
difference to the way her family treated her. So
Yeah.
she wasn't being dictatorish to them in terms of, "You can't talk to me now." She helped them understand by setting up some
Yeah.
guidelines beforehand to go in and check in with
Absolutely.
them each,
Yeah.
you know.
And I recommend the same at work. As I
Yeah.
say, talk to people about it and say, this is, this is what you need in order to be productive. And
Mm.
make sure that you're available to people again if the bottom falls out, that you're there.
Yeah,
But explain it to people. Don't just become unavailable, because that's,
exactly.
that's but again, it's all about boundaries. And that's, by the way, is of course my next year's topic. I'm going to
Oh,
do
that
hashtag
segues beautifully.
boundaries.
That segues beautifully.
Doesn't it just?
Fantastic.
Well, I know we can talk about this for much longer, and there are so many more things we can talk about. But I hope everybody has gotten some ideas and has lots of food for thought, because that's the purpose of these chats. Thank you so much, Julie. It's been
My
wonderful
pleasure.
to see you, and I'll see everybody else next week. Thank you.